Okay everyone, so I have a different one for you. Pretty cool, but unfortunately it sounds like a sad bunch of events here. So I really like this overlay. This overlay is really cool. I don't know how many of you look online, but this is a GM gauge repair overlay. They sell a bunch of different ones. It actually looks pretty cool. It says it's for a Duramax right here, but the sad part is this coil light doesn't come on. So that tells me this is probably programmed for a gas motor, or it's missing some components. It's supposed to have the trans temp. He says he's not sure if that's ever worked, and he says the lighting has always flickered since he's got it back. And basically the whole complaint of it is it's been worse since he got it back than it was when he sent it off. And just looking at it, I'll see if the light picks it up, but there's a bunch of scratches like everywhere on this. And I don't know, I don't want to call anybody out, but I mean, the lighting's hard to catch. There you go. There's a bunch of scratches here. And then I can tell somebody's been into it here. There's some junk on. It doesn't look like a fingerprint. It just looks like, well, there's a bunch. Actually, there's like 6 fingerprints here. So there's a bunch of fingerprints. It's scratched down here. There you go. You can see it there. I mean, it's in rough shape for being a professional job, in my opinion. If I got this back, I definitely would not be happy. Again, I am in the repair business, but if I was a customer, I think he probably, I'm just guessing, I bet he paid upwards of $300+ for this, because I know what I pay for overlays and needles and stuff. But let's just power it up and see where we're at here. So it does power up. Wow, okay. So you guys can't see that. Let me turn the light off. It's still almost impossible to see. So the odometer, there's like literally, it's so dim, there's no Prundle here. There's no park reverse neutral drive 321 here. This doesn't look like it's on. They do look like they're LEDs based off the background of kind of just the coloring. So I'm going to guess, without opening it up so far, there probably are LEDs. It's odd that he says it flickers. It looks okay. This one just looks like it's out. So my guess is probably just bad, let me shake it, bad soldering job. And maybe that one's just intermittent. But the needles actually seem not too bad set. They seem pretty good. So let me turn the light back on. I'm going to go ahead and depower the unit. And let's start removing the needles here. And we'll see what we have underneath. So my guess is LEDs. And hopefully they put in X27s, because it sounded like a recent rebuild. So we'll go with that. Sorry, my big arm's right in the way of the camera here. Oop. So what's going on here? Very tough. He has an 05. So, yeah, this is not for a, well, actually, so he's missing this resistor, or this capacitor here. Let me, might grind a little. You might hear the camera, but I'm going to get a closer shot at this. So it's missing a capacitor here, and these up here, a lot of these go to the warning, or sorry, not warning, like indicator lights that are around the board. I don't think that one's actually for the Duramax. I don't think that's the coil one. I think it's the second one down, which it does have. So it's interesting, his coil light didn't come on. And he does have LEDs, but he has these single LEDs, which are, in my opinion, just garbage. And wow. I mean, if you're paying for a professional soldering job repair, I mean, that is absolutely horrid in my opinion. I mean, you can obviously see, like here, they didn't touch up anything here. And you can definitely tell where they tried to fix something, because it is just horrible, horrible, horrible soldering job. And the same thing, if you look at the LEDs, you have a lot of flux residue left over. on these motors. Same thing here. And that one's not too bad, really. So let me zoom out on it here. Oops, sorry about that. I'll go ahead and zoom back out. Okay. So I'm going to take this connector out. So in my professional opinion, let me get rid of this bottom thing and flip the board over so you guys can see. Let me see what the motors look like. Yeah, some interesting solder work here. It's hard to tell, unless you know what you're looking for again. But they tried to jumper that pad across, and it didn't look like they did it all the way. So, the customer does not want me to rebuild the whole thing. He just wanted me to try and get his lighting to work again. Overall, I guess on the backside, not too bad, to be honest. Yeah, not too bad. They're missing solder. Like, they should have way more solder than that. And then there's just, I don't know, dirt. What is this? Dust? Like, they didn't clean the backside of the board at all. So, interesting, to be honest. I mean, I've seen worse work on my bench, but yeah, I'm not even going to comment. You guys can just decide. Pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead and heat up my soldering iron, and then I'm going to take these LEDs off. I'm going to try and, while that's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the board. So I have this, I use these, I'm not brushing my teeth obviously with these. I use these heads. I should just get like a cheap pack of those, but the problem is not that it's a problem, but I buy these in bulk, you know, for a regular toothbrush, and I just take a couple out and use them for this. So the thing is like this, if you just, and granted this is maybe just for most people that are like, well, what's the benefit of you doing this? Well, aesthetics for one, yes. For two, if you get really hot or that flux gets really bad, it can get corrosive and it can cause weird issues. I mean, it looks like they tried to attempt to fix the problem areas that are normally problematic. For the most part, they didn't hit everything. But I mean, just cleaning this up, and granted, I mean, I know most of these repair shops are like, hey, nobody's ever looking inside these boards, who cares, you know? Just get it done and move it on. But my whole thing is if you're doing quality work and you're charging top dollar, I mean, you should just clean up after yourself. And I'm realistically fairly, I mean, I am. I'm really new to this cluster repair stuff. I do other type of repair stuff. I've been doing computer work for 20 plus years. But I mean, yeah, this is just outstanding, horrible work, in my opinion, of leaving stuff like that. So all this takes is like, this is just rubbing alcohol. I mean, it's not anything special. And you're just cleaning up the contacts here. And already, I mean, I don't know if you guys can see how much better that looks, but it looks way better. And let me pull that aside. So, you saw what the before was. And granted, I haven't blowed it dry with a like an air nozzle or anything, or just taking a paper towel. But already it looks so much better, right? Just in that one little area. The solder joints are still really bad, and I can fix that. But and I don't get why they replaced these. So this is the other pet peeve. So this is your left turn signal, this is your right turn signal, and this is your cruise control. These never go bad. So it's really odd they'd replace these, to be honest. I apologize. I've had a cold for a while. So, and then, like, what's up with this LED? Like, why is it angled so far to the right there? I don't know. I feel sorry for this guy. That's the only thing I can say. So, my iron should be hot enough by now. I'll put in a little bit of flux here. I'll wipe it off. Let me pull these. Yep. Junk LEDs. Wow, that one was like shoved right into the motor. I don't know. Don't know, don't care. Right? It's not my job to criticize other people's work. So I apologize if that's what's happening, but again, when you're paying for another professional, if this is somebody just doing it themselves and they've never done it before, I wouldn't be as critical. But when you're sending this off, like, look at that. I didn't even touch it with heat, and the resistor fell right off the LED. I don't know. That shouldn't be happening. I will give them points. They put X27 motors on everything, and those are the latest motors, so good on them. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I can fix this here. It's definitely looks suspect. Like, what is up with that? I don't know. Whatever. Whatevs. Alright, so we're good there. Let me turn my soldering iron off. Again, after I desolder something, and now I have room, I am going to clean up these contact points. So you get as much as you can, and then get rid of this. So when you get a lot of flux like this, and I'll show you actually because I have some of this solder, you can buy low melting solder point solder essentially, or it just basically melts at a lower point, and then depending on like the amount of flux and tin and blah blah lead ratio, will depend how, I'm going to call it dirty, how dirty of a solder it is when you're on the board. And when you're doing electronics repair like this, you really do not want dirty solder. It's just not good because it splatters everywhere, and when it splatters everywhere, it can get on other components. So it pays to buy nicer stuff. I mean, it really does, and the customer will be happier, and it really costs you pennies compared to what you're making off these things. I mean, I'm not getting rich by any means, but like already it's looking much better. Yeah, so like here's a piece of flux, or sorry, a piece of solder just hanging out on the board. Interesting. I should do this slower. I do this as a habit, I guess, because I do this so often. But yeah, I mean, basically anything that's corrosive or on the board that looks disgusting, I mean, you need to just take some time and care to fix. And the other interesting thing is right here, they've actually scored into the board somewhere. Or like right here, I don't know why. And I think it's the problem is any big company, any time a company gets big, they just, the quality, in my opinion, for the most part, just goes downhill. Because they're trying to pump out as much as possible because they've got their marketing brand, everything's going good for them, and they're just trying to pump out as many boards as possible, and it's probably dictated them by management. I mean, I don't know anything about this particular company, but they're probably trying to get as many of these done as possible in a day in whatever 8-hour shift they're working, rather than spending a little more time on quality control. Okay. I don't want to get that into the stepper motor controller, so I'm going to go ahead and dab that. And then same thing over here. Like, look at this. Just pieces of solder just hanging out on the board. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, maybe I was lied to, maybe the customer did all this stuff, but definitely didn't sound like it. And I mean, I met with him today. Like I said, I gave him a cluster today, and I trust the guy. He seemed pretty suspect of like anybody else working on his boards. And after seeing kind of what's going on the inside, not the worst work, but I don't blame him. And the dim display kind of a bad deal. Alright, we're almost all cleaned up here. So, that looks much better. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but I'm happy with that. That's much better. So now what we'll do is I need to get my soldering iron hooked back up here. I'm just going to visually look at the board and see if I see anything else. So that works just fine. I mean, these are atrocious. I don't know what to do with those at this point. I have factory ones. I'm tempted to put those back in. They're cheap. I have, here's a bag of these. These things are cheap. When I first started out, I was going to contemplate and use those. And I tried them on my own personal rig, and I mean, they just don't last. So I don't know why a big name company would be using those bulbs. It's just kind of interesting to me. And then, like, here's some cheap flux, or sorry, solder that has that flux in it that'll leave the same residue that they had on all their stuff. And I will go ahead and use this just to prove a point here. And I'm going to use a cheap, crappy soldering iron. But here, I'll go ahead and put it in here. Let me see if it's hot enough first. Yep. The crazy thing is I'm doing this quickly. So of course my camera isn't really designed for this, but I touched up most all these resistors here, and I was using that crappy solder like I was telling you about earlier. And if you can see in the camera, it leaves a bunch of residue behind. It still works, but I mean, look how bad that looks. It looks almost burned, which is not, it's just flux. But as I was doing this, almost all the resistors were loose. So that tells me this and this is probably going to get a whole lot better. Let me just clean it up first before I actually power it on to prove my point, but dropping tools here. And like I said, this is not the fanciest soldering job. I'm just doing this really rough to prove a point that even with crappy tools, you can still make it look fairly nice. Okay. So I hit that. These I redid a little too. Let me grab the forceps here and clean this flux off of here too. I just don't like the way that looks. And that one's actually, I didn't do that, but that's actually a piece of solder touching the diode right next to it, so that's not good. Okay, much better. So just out of curiosity, that was a quick and dirty. Let me grab his base plate here. And then I'll go ahead and plug this in to the back. Granted, none of the lights are going to come on because I took them off, but I'm just curious about these two specifically, if they get any better now. Much better, much better. So, that's all that was. Look at that. So much better. So I feel bad for the guy because that was all it was. It was just a crappy job, and like I said, that was a cheap, probably a $20 iron is all I used, and the cheapest possible solder I could possibly find. So I feel bad for the guy that he spent so much money and sent this out. This is obviously going to be repaired. I'm going to use much better solder and tools to do the rest of this board because there's other components that they didn't focus on and fix, and I am going to make sure I go over the board thoroughly and then give this back to him. But anyhow, like I guess, you know, the lesson learned here is just because you're paying a lot of money for a lot of cool flashy stuff doesn't mean you're getting possibly the greatest service. I'm not trying to degrade the company with this back overlay. The back overlay could have been bought totally separate, but as you can tell using the camera, I mean, it's scratched up here. Where else did I notice scratches? Scratched up here. I mean, it's pretty bad. I just feel, you know, there's a nick here, there's a nick there. So I don't know if somebody else was into this at some point in time, but it's unfortunate to say the least. Hopefully he'll be happy. I'm probably going to replace these two because I don't trust these bulbs. Like I said, I have a whole bag full of these and I don't even use them. That's why I still have a whole bag. I'm going to give him factory bulbs just to know, peace of mind in my head. But anyhow, it looks good now, and he's obviously going to see this video, but yeah, I'll do the rest of the work here, put in quality LEDs, and he shouldn't have a problem moving forward. Just a little different one. I'll post one more video after I get it all the way done. Thanks, guys. Alright, so we're back with my board repair. All the lights are my style white LEDs. As you can clearly tell, the odometer and the park reverse neutral drive 321 is a lot better. It's much brighter. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. Overall, I mean, everything else looks fine. I'm going to turn the lights back on here. We'll see how my LEDs look compared to theirs with his face gauge on. They're still super dim, in my opinion. It's the overlay that they're using for this backlight, but it's really hard to tell on this camera. But I mean, you can kind of do the angle. It's much better than it was for sure. I mean, this is how it's supposed to be. It's really dim just in general for how that overlay is. So it looks good to me, but I mean, this is just way too dim. I think half its problem is the overlay, but it definitely was way too dim just to begin with, and they did just poor work with the rest of the stuff. I'll go ahead and just reset his needles here and just get him back and running. I feel sorry that his face plate is just all scratched up. Kind of hurts me inside, for, considering how much these stupid things cost. So I turned that one. That one will be fine. I clicked it after it. That's where it's going to be. I'll sweep them obviously to make sure they're supposed to be where they're at. And then we'll do these two. But at least his lights won't flicker, and they'll be, everything will be as it's supposed to work. Let's see here. Okay, so this is way off actually, so I need to fix this one. It looks like almost they used a metal pry tool on these things. I'm going to pull this back off. I mean, this is just, man, the camera does not do it justice, but there's some huge gouge marks there, like somebody tried to use a metal tool to pry that open. I'm going to turn this back on. Make sure all the other ones, yeah, they look good. Yep, right where they're supposed to be. So, yeah, this is part of just the overlay, unfortunately. And like I said, this is a custom overlay. I mean, you can't make out his odometer really until you get really close. Nothing I can do about that other than put a different overlay on, unfortunately. But yeah, they just this transparency material is just not very transparent in the daytime. But it's, like I said, it's leaps and bounds better than how he had it. So I guess I'm just gonna call that done. He can look at it and see if he likes it or not, or if he wants to swap out this gauge faceplate for like a different faceplate that I have, because I do have a there we go. I do have a spare like SS gauge plate or faceplate that I could put on there. It's white at least. Doesn't have all the cool stuff, but he'd be able to read those much better. But this has been a long enough video already. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. I was able to repair it, so that's good news. Gonna go ahead and end this one. Thanks, guys. I figured I should do a complete. So this was a full rebuild on this. I stated earlier in the video it wasn't, but it actually was. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and plug my connector back in. And hook it up, and we'll see, make sure it sweeps correctly. Let's see. Yep. They all look right where they're supposed to be. Again, it's really hard. I mean, the camera really from this angle doesn't pick that up. That's just unfortunate. I mean, this is much better. Before on the camera you couldn't even see this. But yeah, again, it's the transparency they're using. Nothing I can do about it. But it is on 100% right now. I mean, I'll turn it off the light here. And that's what it looks like. I actually think my white LEDs look more white. It had like a yellowish tint to it before with whatever LEDs they had in it before. So I think it's definitely more color correct now too as well. And like you said, you can kind of see the odometer, but man, it is just really, really dim. So take that for what you will, I guess. If you're looking into buying one of these, you know, that might be something you might be interested in, because with the daylight, I can see it with my eye. The camera's not picking it up. I can see the odometer, and it's not unreadable, but it's not, you know, that great either. So anyhow, thanks for watching as always.